This is a note and this is a pen, and this is a video on how to turn them into a productive study tactics to step up your grades, which was exactly what Abdaal did when he was in med school. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you some powerful things he did to rank first at Cambridge University. Wow. And I believe that any student who wants to achieve better grades in school can start using them as well, starting with Timetable, and I believe that this is everything. Now you might be thinking, of course he's intelligent, of course he's always focused on his studies, but actually that's my first point, and that is one thing you really need to consider. Academic success is about trying to be more focused on doing things that many students won't want to do. That's what Miss Vasti and Thomas Frank did, and that is why they are so successful academically. He uses a different timetable called the Retrospective revision timetable. Have you heard about that? To get ahead in revision.
The idea behind a retrospective revision timetable is that it's different to a prospective revision timetable. Normally when we make a revision timetable, we like to list out that, oh, on this day I'm going to study this, this and that. On, then next week I'm going to study a bit of renal physiology and a little bit of upper limb anatomy and a little bit of like the Krebs cycle in biochemistry. And we create this like theoretical plan, which A, is an exercise in procrastination because just creating that prospective revision timetable is a bit of a waste of time. And B, I don't know, if you're anything like me, you never end up actually sticking to that theoretical timetable because real life gets in the way, there's social stuff that happens, and we find that maybe I'm good at that thing, but not at that thing. And so this theoretical plan ends up just going out the window. Instead, what I like to do is use a retrospective revision timetable. And I've been using this for my exams from like second year of med school onwards. And the idea there is that instead of planning what we're going to do in advance, we actually just plan it on the day. And we focus on our weaknesses. We figure out, okay, where are my red zones today? I was red on physiology, so let me study some of that. I was red on neuroanatomy, so let's study a little bit of that. And then once we've studied it, we put the date down next to the subject, and then we can color code it based on how well we did on that subject on the day. And so at the start, we have a long list of topics and they're all red because we don't know any of it. But then over time, they slowly go amber and they slowly go green.
Now you see what he uses. This is totally different and difficult, but it definitely doesn't mean it's impossible. All you just need to do is start thinking differently. To get the academic success that Abdaal got, you need to be focused and do things differently. You don't need to follow every piece of advice you see on the internet. Now, of course, this is easier said than done, and it's really only possible if you're an intelligent student, right? Well, actually, no. I believe that we could all think like Abdaal, no matter what you're studying. You might be asking, why am I picking and dropping this note? Well, it's because he doesn't use my best studying method, note taking. He said it's a waste. Did he say it's a waste? He said it's a total waste of time.
Or is that note-taking is broadly a waste of time. Now, this is a bit of a controversial take, but there's a bunch of studies that show that students, like one of students' favorite strategy for studying is to summarize or take notes from the stuff that they're consuming in lectures or the stuff they're watching videos about or the stuff they're reading in textbooks. But there's a decent amount of evidence that says that simply taking notes and summarizing with the book open, proverbially, is not a very effective way to learn because it's quite a passive thing and it's very easy for us to do. Now, generally, we have this misconception when we're trying to learn stuff that learning should be easy, and when learning is easy, we feel productive. Yeah, I've just done 3 pages worth of notes. But actually, the way that memory is formed and the way that we build those connections between concepts and topics is by putting effort into it. And in a way, the more effortful it appears, the harder it seems to us, the more likely our brain is to form connections between those relevant things, and the more likely we are to actually know the topic. That's why most students' method for taking notes is a little bit of a waste of time because all you're doing is just summarizing the material. Whereas there's a bunch of other techniques that have been shown in the scientific literature where they've done hundreds of studies looking at evidence-based study tips that are way better than taking notes. Now,
Well, you've heard him, but that doesn't mean I'm dropping my notes again. One thing any students who wants to achieve academic success needs to focus on is understanding. Most of the time, when we are studying, we deceive ourselves that we are understanding. But in the real world, we are actually cramming. If you want to achieve more, you need to focus more on understanding than cramming. This is one of the things that pushed Abdaal to rank first, and I believe that you can do the same.
Is to focus on understanding first. Now, again, one of the mistakes that students make, which I made a lot when I was a student, is to try and just memorize stuff as we go along. But the way that we should try and study is broadly, we need to understand stuff first and we need to memorize it second. Understanding it basically means being able to explain it to a 12-year-old or a 5-year-old or however year old you have a friend or nephew or niece or son or daughter. Basically, we want to understand things enough to explain them to a 5-year-old. And there's a quote from Einstein, which is that if you can't allegedly from Einstein, which is that if you can't explain it to a 12-year-old, you probably just don't understand it well enough. This is also famously called the Feynman technique, named after Richard Feynman, who apparently was just like a fantastic communicator and really good at physics and stuff. But one of his key skills was in being able to break down concept topics and explain them to kids. And that's what understanding really means. Like, it's not really about whether, can a 5-year-old understand it, but it's more about, can you explain it to someone that doesn't really have a baseline level of knowledge on the topic, and can you answer the why questions that they're going to inevitably ask? And the idea is that for each topic, you try and explain it to a 5-year-old in your head or a friend or whatever. And when you get to the point where you don't know the answer to one of the questions that they're asking, at that point you think, okay, cool, this is where my understanding ends. Let me dive into the textbook or the internet or Wikipedia or YouTube or whatever, and let me fill in this gap. And now I'll be able to explain it to the 5-year-old again. And so over time, we're very much focusing on how do we understand.
Now you get the point. So reduce your cramming abilities and focus on getting the point. The next reason Abdaal ranked first is because he used 3 different memorizing methods, which actually made it almost impossible to forget whatever he studied. Wow, just look at this. Once you see this, you might be thinking what I'm thinking, and you will be left with one question in your mind. How does he use all these 3 memorizing methods? Let me show you. Active recalling, spaced repetition, and interleaving are not just memorizing methods. They are also study methods and powerful ones as well. I asked one of the most intelligent ladies in my college the study method she uses, and this is what she told me.
How I normally study is when I read, I get a book aside my notes book, my lecture notebook. I get a summary note and jot down what I've read. Like if I read 2 pages or a particular topic, I jot down things I can remember from what I've read.
Now, if you listen carefully, you will notice that she's using the active recall method. There are a lot of study methods, but spaced repetition, active recalling, and interleaving are one of the best for remembering whatever you study. And this will lead to a question I have for you, and that is, why do we forget parts of a material we studied after a week of studying it? Pause the video here and think about this. The answer to this is normally normal and natural due to what we call the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve. It doesn't mean you are dumb, it doesn't mean you are not intelligent, it's actually the way our memory works. But using spaced repetition will make this forgetting curve theory useless to you, and this is how the boss uses it.
And the idea behind spaced repetition is that spaced repetition interrupts the forgetting curve. So we might study a topic on day 1 and use active recall to test ourselves at the end of the session. Then our memory is going to decay a bit, and maybe the next day we would repeat the testing of ourselves. And if we got stuff wrong, we would look at our notes. Then we might repeat it 4 days later, and then maybe a week later, and then maybe 3 weeks later. And the idea is that over time, as we repeat the testing and as we space that out over time, that is what's going to lead to the forgetting curve being interrupted permanently, and we're going to try and help get that information into our long-term memory. This is why as well, like, consistency when it comes to studying over a long period of time is generally a lot better than like random bouts of intensity all in one go. Because even if you do like 15 minutes per day, that is way better than doing like 2 hours at the end of the week, because you're benefiting from that spaced repetition effect, and you're benefiting from the fact that memory formation really gets consolidated when we are sleeping. And so in a way, the more sleeps you have in between study sessions, the more likely you are to more effortlessly retain all that stuff.
Well, you see why I called him a boss. If you really want to know more about spaced repetition, interleaving, and active recalling, please leave a comment below and we will help you out. Now, the idea behind these methods are powerful because they will help you get things into your head. But what if you are preparing for your exams and you don't want to use these 3 memorization methods that Abdaal uses? Let me show you a secret on how Abdaal prepares for exam. Is that exam or exams? Now, this is where you need to pay full attention in. Because if you only do what is easy, you will always remain weak. Well, this was what I learned from the battlefield of the mind, and it also relates to Abdaal's familiar but unique and difficult methods for preparing for exams. Abdaal knows the real deal behind exam success, and he uses 5 insanely powerful and beautiful tactics to beat the exam system. Wait, did I put the 5 tactics into this bag? Because I wrote them down in my jotter. Let me show you. Wait, if you're interested in knowing the powerful tactics that he uses, which you should, leave a comment with interested, because I'm about to dive in and break down that for you. And if you're also interested, make sure you like this video, because the likes will make me to make it and break it down just like the video you just watched now. Did I just say you just watched now or you are still watching? I just noticed that some students always complain that studying is difficult. So I have a question for you. Is studying difficult for you? Just leave a comment below, please. I would love to hear it from you and understand from your own experience how it's difficult. But there is a new interesting technique in town, and I think you should know that technique. This technique is a time management technique that helps you to really focus on whatever you want to study, no matter the course. If you really want to know that technique, click on this video, and this video will show you everything about the technique. I'm Maxy. All I do in this channel and all we do in this channel is to break down studying tips and also give you things that you need to help you study better. So if you are interested in that, make sure you subscribe and also study a book, and I'll see you in the next video.